If you're going to acquire personnel, whether those be coaches, players, or even in the front office, hey, you might as well go to the best. Go to Alabama, at least Nick Saban's Alabama. And that's what Ohio State has done once again for a fourth time this offseason. So much going on around college football. We will, of course, take your comments and questions. And we're here on Buckeyes Live, typically on Wednesday, folks, but that's why you subscribe. Hit the bell for the notifications to know when we go live. Steve and others headed off to the NFL Combine this week, so we will adjust. And here we are on a Monday. There is Steve, Bucknuts 247 Sports, Tony Gerdeman, Buckeye Huddle, Buckeye Weekly as well as the podcast to lock in on. Guys, how are we doing today?
Doing well.
Doing great.
Thank you for adjusting the schedules to make this happen this week. As mentioned, Ohio State is a new director of player personnel, Sam Petitto. He comes from Alabama. So maybe that's all he put on the resume. University of Alabama under Nick Saban. That probably was good enough.
Yeah, looks like another guy to work in the office with Mark Pantoni, who is the general manager / associate athletic director for player personnel. So there's no confusion that Petitto is coming in to work for Mark Pantoni. He has been at Alabama with Nick Saban for the last 8 years. Been a pretty good run there, obviously, at Alabama, but certainly with Nick Saban announcing his retirement, there's been a lot of upheaval within that program. I mean, you think about what they did. They had 6 consecutive top 2 recruiting classes with him on the staff there at Alabama. And obviously, they win, they're in the hunt every year for the SEC and the national championship. He was at Georgia before that, North Carolina. I mean, so this guy has been at some major colleges, obviously, and he's going to come in and give Ohio State one more resource in its bid to attract and sign not only the best high school players, but I would have to think that this guy is also somebody who will be involved in assessing talent and making relationships with players in the transfer portal as well. So I guess we'll wait and see how Mark Pantoni aligns the whole situation. But I would consider this a major coup for Ohio State to hire a guy who's been integral to the success at Alabama the last 8 years or so.
Yeah, it's basically hiring another Mark Pantoni, and we know what kind of impact he's had at Ohio State. And I've already seen Devin Sanchez's mom on Twitter talking about how happy she was when she heard the news that Petitto was going to Ohio State because that their family loves him. And it's interesting, Steve, talking about the evaluation and the transfer portal aspect of this. Mark Pantoni and Petitto, they have touched base with so many high school recruits throughout the years that just about anybody good in the portal will have talked to them previously in high school. So you're building relationships not just for the guys that you're recruiting, but also for the guys that may be in the portal later on as well. So yeah, it's the families, the players all like him. And so you're bringing that kind of personality in to fill up that director of player personnel. And it's just amazing how much this has all grown because, Mark Pantoni was like, when he first got here in 2012, brought over with Urban Meyer, was just like director of recruiting, the recruiting coordinator or whatever. And that whole department has expanded every single year as the sport has expanded in different ways and social media has taken its course. And now you have the recruiting department, the graphics department, Ohio State, like everybody else, now has a full-time person evaluating film of guys in the portal and things like that. And so this is a big thing. It's a good thing. It's going to help out. And, you get the Georgia, the Alabama background. I believe he's from Louisiana as well. So just that whole tri-state area in there where there's a whole bunch of talent, certainly not going to hurt.
I could use a graphics department. Maybe they could loan me a few people. Steve did a nice job of outlining basically what this position is about. And it's funny because when you put the tag on it from just a few years ago, well, a few years, meaning maybe 7 or 8 at this point, in terms of director of recruiting and how that is morphed because of how much the game has changed. I would have asked you years ago, okay, how do you compare it to an NFL position doing the same thing? Now I would ask, what are the differences? Maybe a salary cap, and that's about it.
Well, and that's going to be like the collective liaison. There's going to be something there as well. So yeah, and you've got Mark Pantoni as the general manager. I mean, the general manager oversees everything. Now, the guy above him would be like the president in the NFL. You've got the team president, and then the general manager. So I think at some point you'll see Mark Pantoni maybe become OSU team president, and then you've got the GM below him and the director of player personnel. But with the collectives, and once that all gets brought in house in terms of the NIL, that's you're gonna need a cap guy. It's going to be, I won't even say a mini NFL. It's just going to be another NFL in terms of the personnel departments, the stuff behind the scenes where you've got money guys, you've got talent evaluator guys. You can't ask one guy to oversee all of that. The NFL has 53 players. College will have double that. So just from walk-ons and everything else, it's a lot to ask. But yeah, the differences are going to become, less and less, and different differences and different sames, where how you evaluate or how you keep guys or how you push guys out. There's a lot of professional aspect to it, but in a different way. So yeah, it'll be interesting to watch how it all comes to pass and the jobs that are created for it and about it. It's college sports are an industry in and of themselves, and it's not getting any smaller.
And Tony, the transfer portal portion that I don't hear talked about much or at all, I bring it up. Not that I'm some genius, but I certainly bring it up anytime somebody asks me, hey, transfer portal, and especially the month of December. We talked about just the workload during the month of December. And the thing that I think of with the transfer portal is the scouting of these players. Basically, going back to the film room, having to look up all this video. Well, that's done for them, I'm sure, but by assistance, okay. And having to evaluate all these players, it's easy for us to look at the transfer portal and say, hey, that guy looks good. That guy looked at his stat sheet, whatever, but they're making important decisions. So just having to re-scout all these players that are available just seems like a huge task in and of itself.
Well, and I remember when this first started happening with the portal and how big it became, Mark Pantoni would talk about all of the hours that it takes to review films. Once guys show up, you're like, well, who is this guy? Let's take a look. Now Ohio State has Billy Homer, who is their college scouting director, who basically that's part of his job is just to evaluate. And I wonder how often do you even wait until they're in the portal? Because the portal is only open a couple of times a year, so you've got to fill out other times. So you're probably pre-scouting potential guys. You could probably just go ahead and scout everybody that signs with Texas A&M or Miami because they'll be in the portal at some point. So just get a head start on that, work ahead. But also guys who kind of blow up in the group of 5. They're having a great season. Hey, take a look at this guy, because generally once you have one good season in the group of 5 now and you have a season to go, or 2 seasons in the case of Will Kazmarek went from Ohio to Ohio State. Once you start seeing guys, and you have to be looking for it, but once you start seeing guys at the lower levels have some success, hey, take a look, because there's a pretty good chance they're going to be in the portal, because that's just the way things progress now.